So here we are in another week of the 5 second rule. And this week we are going to be talking about chapter 11. We're going to be talking about ending procrastination. You think we can do it? And Christy got on for her first time just on the right week.
I must be going now.
No, Julie, you're
Perfect.
here. I know. All right. Okay, Jenny, you want to get us started?
All right, start before you're ready. Don't prepare, begin. Here we go. To begin, begin. That's pretty good. The 5 second rule is an incredible weapon in the fight against procrastination. Before we dig into how to use it, we need to define procrastination, what it is and what it isn't. In researching this book, I was shocked when I learned what causes procrastination. I had it all wrong. I was also surprised to learn there are two kinds of procrastination. Destructive procrastination, which is when you avoid tasks you need to complete, and productive procrastination, which is an important part of any creative process. Let's start with the good kind. Productive procrastination. If you're working on a creative project or an innovative idea, research shows that procrastination is not only good, but it's important. The creative process takes time. So when you set a project aside for a few days or weeks, your mind can wander. That extra time spent mental wandering gives you the ability to come up with more creative, divergent ideas that enhance your product. Productive procrastination was a hugely liberating concept for me to learn, especially while struggling to write this book. Before I learned about productive procrastination, I beat myself up constantly because I kept feeling burnout. I had writer's block, and I thought it meant I was a bad writer, lazy, or incapable. In truth, a creative process of this magnitude just took time. My mind needed breaks and time to wander. It took me 7 months longer than I thought it would to finish the book, and the book is 100 times better for it. If you're not getting the results you want, give the project some time, go focus your energy somewhere else, and then come back later with fresh eyes. So if you're working on a creative project and you don't have a fixed deadline, it's not procrastination if you let your work sit for a few weeks so you can let your mind wander. It's a creative process. Those fresh new ideas will have you have as you procrastinate productively will make your work even smarter. Destructive procrastination. Destructive procrastination is an entirely different animal. It's when we avoid the work we need to get done and know there will be negative consequences. This habit really comes back to bite you in the end. Every one of us has a pile of stuff we can't seem to get to. Updating photo albums, analyzing a spreadsheet, finishing a proposal, cleaning out dad's house, or plowing through a to-do list that would grow your business. It's anything that we find ourselves deliberately avoiding that really needs to get done. Evelyn found herself procrastinating and beating herself up. I have questioned everything about myself for years. She put the rule into effect and it's been amazing. Once she discovered 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go, Evelyn was able to push past her questioning and just got things done, impressing even herself. She says, Mel, I got up yesterday after I put the rule into effect. I have questioned everything about myself for years. I start, I stop, I'm nothing, I'm something. I cleaned my living room, kitchen, dining room, did 7 loads of laundry, and I was amazing. That's just the beginning. I impressed myself. I signed up, my husband is signed up, and I'm ready to move. She probably didn't know why she was procrastinating. Most of us don't. For a long time, everyone believed procrastination meant poor time management skills, a lack of willpower, or lack of self-discipline. Boy, were we wrong. Procrastination is not a form of laziness at all. It's a coping mechanism for stress. Anybody got anything yet?
Okay, so when I read that line, I was just like, yes. I mean, I completely agree with that. Anytime I'm procrastinating, there's always a stress like element to it. There's always something else going on. And a lot of times the things I'm procrastinating about have nothing to do with the thing I'm stressed about. Right?
Yeah.
It's just an underlying stress that's going on. And it's causing me to just kind of be like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow, and that's a slippery slope that honestly, that I feel like that's a slippery slope into some level of depression, right? Because then you start beating yourself up, feeling guilty, and you do start thinking, I'm just lazy. I don't have the willpower. And willpower is finite. I mean, like willpower will go away. That's the reason why we concentrate so much on finding your reason to work the business, right? Because your willpower will give out at some point. You know, everybody has the ability to have willpower, depending upon, but it's kind of how much willpower you have in reserve too. That's why sometimes you do have willpower carry you for a really long time, because you're mentally in a good place. Your willpower like tank is pretty full, and so you can tap into it. There are other times that you have zero willpower, right? I know I've experienced that. There are times, and then I again I'm beating myself up because I'm just like, well, I did this before. Like I did it for like 6 months straight. Like what's my problem? Like, and and it's just because I'm already empty. Like I don't have anything left, you know. And to me, what I think kind of like helps with my willpower tank is being clear about what it is that I want to achieve, right? Or but also um being in a good place self-confidence wise, you know. Even if whatever it is that let's just use weight, because it's an easy example, like weight, exercise, that type of stuff, right? So sometimes, you know, you go for it and you're like I said, willpower carries you for a really long time. And then other times you're just like you can't even get there, right? But you can still be wanting to lose weight or exercise or whatever, but still have confidence, still have self-confidence in yourself. You still have good self-esteem, all of that. And that's when you do have the willpower to let that carry you for quite a while. But if you have been going on defeat after defeat after defeat, you know, and then you're trying to slowly kind of like get your footing on whatever your goal is, whether it's a Tupperware thing, you know, or whether it's a health thing, right? It makes it that much harder. And that's where you can't really tap into that willpower, and you need to tap into you need to tap into the reason, the why. You know, maybe for your health, you want to be able to keep up with your grandkids or keep up with your kids, or just keep up. You're right. And then maybe for Tupperware, your why is a financial thing, right? And you're just like, I really want to be able to just not think about money when I'm at the grocery store, not be mentally adding everything up. It's exhausting to me, you know. And so maybe that's your why, and that way, that why, that reason, with your goal for whatever it is, whatever aspect of your life you're working towards, that is what you have to focus on until the willpower kicks in. Once you start getting some wins under your belt, you can kind of go back and forth between willpower and your why, your reason, or whatever. And when you start to falter, you lean on that why, that emotional attachment that you have to whatever the outcome is. Um, but I think it's really important, this line right here, that procrastination is not a form of laziness at all. It's a coping mechanism for stress. And when you recognize that, it frees you. And that's a freeing statement, right? It takes that label that you're putting on yourself off of you, right? I'm not lazy, right? I'm not lazy. I'm having a stress response to these things going on in my life, and that's okay. But what you do need to do, it's not a free pass, right? If you want to push past that, you have to figure out, okay, so I'm not lazy. I'm having a stress response to these things going on in my life. How can I manage these things? How can I manage this stress? How can I relieve some of this stress? You know, and for some people, sometimes you can go straight to the stressor and resolve whatever that situation is, right? And then other times you can't, right? It's kind of out of your hands. It's something it's somebody else that's causing you stress, and you're having a stress response to whatever that is they're going on, right? And then that's where like the head work comes in, right? That's where you have to, for me, it goes to God, and it goes to meditation, and it goes to yoga, and it goes to doing things deliberate, like acupuncture, doing things like that. I go the holistic route all day long, right? And so anytime I'm feeling stressed, I know I have 3 or 4 things in my reserve that I know I can do that will help kind of just like take me down. Um, and alcohol is not one of them. Okay, that's really important too, because that is something that will um, enhance whatever the emotions that you're feeling, and you may feel a temporary relief from that, but then it will enhance it, right? Because alcohol is both a um, what's it called? A depressant and a, what's the upper? It's an upper and a downer. I don't know what the words are, right? It's a stimulant. It's a stimulant and a depressant, right? So at first it stimulates you and you're just like, oh, thank God I've got my drink and now I can like relieve the stress of the day, right? But then within about, it's like 30 minutes. I've read a lot about this. It's within about 30 minutes that it shifts, and then it doesn't, you don't have that same relaxing feeling, right? And then you start going into, the problems are still there. And that's why sometimes when people, sometimes when they drink, right, they get really emotional. They start to cry about things that happened years ago. They start to do, right, they get really emotional. And so that's not necessarily the answer. So if that's something that you're turning to, maybe think about it, right? I'm not telling anybody not to do anything. I'm just saying, think about it and recognize the way your body's reacting to it. And then maybe just kind of think of also some other alternatives for you, right? Like I said, other things that you can do that can kind of relieve that stress, so that it gets you out of that cycle that I'm stressed, I'm procrastinating. I'm stressed because I procrastinated and now I'm procrastinating more and I'm stressed, like, right? Because it's a vicious cycle. Lori agrees with me. Jenny's ignoring me and Lori agrees with me. And the rest of you, I can't see your faces. I don't know what you're thinking.
You know what I was thinking is, it's true. Procrastination, it can be a coping mechanism for stress, but sometimes I feel more stressed when my list is so long because I've been procrastinating.
Right.
If I'm I feel more stressed because of that. And once I knock some of those things off, then I feel better. So
It's almost like you can breathe. You're like, okay.
yeah, but it kind of goes into the cycle thing. And, just like we talk about in business, when you give people, 400 things to order, say in a party, where you're like, this, when their list gets too big, what do? They don't do anything,
Right.
And I've had that experience when I've been even, as simple as shopping, and I think we've talked about it, but like the whole essential oils, the whole world of essential oils is so confusing to me. And when the more I hear about it and the more, all these things, you can use this and this and this, you know what I do? Nothing.
Shut down.
Because it's too much information into my brain. And I'm just like, okay, I'll just go buy
And you
that
want to
candle
turn
over
to
there.
that to help relieve the stress, but now
Mhm.
you're confused by what it is you need to do. Yeah.
Yeah. So
It
when
is.
like my brain is overloaded, like completely to the max, then I just shut down and I'm just like, okay, I'm not doing that. I'm not dealing with that. And I put it aside. But sometimes I feel like my stress level is high when my list is long, just because the things like the frog thing, when there's something on your frog list that you just haven't done and it just sits there staring at you every single day. Once you get rid of that, then your stress level goes down and things start to move.
Yeah.
Just another way to look at that, I think.
I agree. And I agree with you. Like, to me, it feels like everything's like on my chest. Like, it's just kind of like when COVID first started, right? When they're just like, nobody really understood it. Nobody knew what was going on. And they kept saying to the news, if you can't hold your breath for 10 seconds without coughing, right? How many of you held your breath to check and see if you had COVID? Because you thought somehow, oh, I totally did it, man. And then I was like, and then after a couple days, I was like, I'm like, my chest hurts. Eric, my chest hurts. My chest hurts. And he's like, it's stress. And I'm like, why would it be stress? I'm not even going anywhere. And he's just like, it's stress. And I was like, how do you know it's stress? And he's like, just trust me. He's like, I've lived with you for 20 years. It's stress. Chill out. Like, and but it is, it just kind of sits on you, that list or whatever it is that's going on in the world at that time. It wasn't my list, because my list actually got cut in half. Because I didn't have any place to go. So I just had things around the house to do, which was very manageable when I took all the running around elements out. And so yeah, it is. It's really important to give yourself some grace around your procrastination, right? And to remind yourself, I'm not lazy, I'm under stress, right? But then go find that stressor and do something to diffuse the situation. And like I said, ideally you can go to that stressor, fix the problem, it's done. But that's life just doesn't always work that way, right? And so you need to figure out a way to manage it within yourself. All right, Jenny, are you ready?
Sure. I had a few questions about productive procrastination, actually,
it.
because I think that could be a definite slippery slope.
I think so too.
To go from, oh, well, I need to think about this a while because I'm being creative, to, oh, I'm not doing that at all because I don't know. I think you could use it as an excuse if you weren't careful.
I think so too. I think so too. And I know this like about myself whenever I'm trying to put together a training, um, I have to allow myself a lot of time to be able to sit and think and write stuff down. And typically I write all this stuff down and then I trash it and I start you know what I mean? But there are times that I get under the gun because I kind of slid down that slippery slope, right? I was like, I carved out the time, but then I sat there and was just kind of like, yeah, you
Just
know,
gonna
and
think about this for a
I'm not
while,
gonna
and
wander
you
in
think
different.
about it a while longer, and oh wait, it's 7:30.
Right. Exactly. What did they call that? What Lori's talking about was they called it analysis paralysis, when you're too overloaded, you have stuff going on and you stop moving, right? Yeah, you like
That
that?
actually has a name.
Yeah, they do. They call it that. You get stuck in the analysis paralysis.
Now I know what my problem is sometimes. Okay,
There you
cool.
go.
Yeah.
AP.
AP.
AP. I got AP.
I got AP. I
I
can't
can't talk to
right
you
now.
today.
I got
I
AP.
can't. I got AP.
AP is acting up. Got to flare up with the AP.
I'm writing that down.
But yeah, and so Jenny, you're absolutely right, because you can be like, yeah, I'm just being creative, and you're really just sitting by the fire having your wine, right, Jenny?
I'm still thinking.
I'm still
I've got this,
thinking
I'm
about what I
still
want to
thinking.
do about that situation.
I agree,
Fine.
Jenny.
Huh?
It could be an excuse. I agree.
Yeah.
You can't use it as
Yeah,
an excuse.
and giving it a name almost gives you like permission to do it. It's
Make
like,
it an
oh
excuse.
no, I am productively
real thing.
procrastinating. Thank you.
It's a real thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. But that's where it comes into self-policing, right? So in our business, we have to be brutally honest with ourselves. We are our own bosses. However, when we sit there and we say, I've called everybody and nobody will date a party. I have done everything. I've done everything anybody has ever told me to do, and it doesn't work for me, right? And you twice, and Jenny's done it twice.
I've done it twice.
And so, but that's where we have to take we have to be responsible for ourselves and recognize, like, well, have I? Because I can literally say, I've never truly done everything. I mean, I could sit there and I can kid myself all the live long day, but I have never truly like done everything.
Let's go. I've called everybody. Well, everybody that I thought would be interested. Well, everybody that, I mean, I don't want to call people I haven't talked to in years. I mean,
Right.
and all of a sudden I called 3 people.
Yeah. So if you are, want to be in this creative headspace because you're doing whatever, or you're just trying to figure out what you want your business to look like. And I talk a lot about my ideal week, right? And so I do have to get into a creative headspace with a calendar and think about, what does my ideal week look like? What is the flow? What is this? What is that? Right. And so when I do that, it helps, like, right. And so, but I have to be, again, I could sit there and I'm like, well, I'm thinking about my ideal week and I don't know, I can't figure it out. And I'm just thinking, and so it's important when you're doing exercises like that, to be mindful of whether or not you're actually doing it. Or if your ideal week turned into your grocery list.
Yeah.
That happens to me a lot. Actually, usually things just turn into to-do list for me. Like, that's when I'm kind of flowing through stuff and I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Typically it turns into a to-do list because something pops in my head. I'm like, oh, I forgot to call the dentist. Write it down. Oh, I forgot. Write it down,
Or it turns into, you think you're working your business because you're spending a lot of time thinking about working your business.
Yes.
That's not working your business, right?
Right.
It's just because you're thinking about it doesn't mean you're actually taking an action and doing it. So
right.
that's the fine line too. And that,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
and
not
we
the
see
same
that
thing.
you see that a lot with newer consultants. I see it a lot with newer consultants that are excited. They come in, right, and they're doing stuff, right, and then all of a sudden they're just like, and but they haven't really like. Sometimes what happens to me is it happens when somebody's like saying all the things that they want out of their business, but I'm not seeing it coming through, right, and then all of a sudden they're like, I need to take a break, and we're like, from
But you
what?
haven't even started.
You haven't done anything,
From
right? Well, what's happening is it's legitimate, right? What's happening is they're thinking about it constantly, but they're not doing anything about it. So to them, they're constantly working their Tupperware business. To us, they haven't done anything, right?
Well, and I think sometimes we do it to them.
Right.
Because instead of helping them get started a little bit at a time, we're like, oh, you need to go do this and you need to go do that and go watch this training and check out this. And then we have this program, we have that program. And so all they really wanted to do was have a launch party with a few of their friends. And now they have, no, they're like, well, I don't want to start till I do all that stuff you told me about. So that's going to take me a minute. And yeah, so I think, so, and so then they start procrastinating on the whole thing.
Right.
You know,
Right.
I can't get that done yet. So I don't want to do that till after I've done this. And yeah.
I definitely agree with you on that, Jenny. And it's very, you have to be very careful. I'm very careful with my leaders. I'm careful with new consultants too, but I'm very careful with my leaders as not try like try to give them bite sizes of stuff versus, oh my gosh, you're a leader now. This is so fantastic. Now let's do this, right? And only maybe 2 times did somebody come to me and say, hey, so and so told me about this and you didn't tell me. Only 2 times out of all the people that I've worked with. And so and one time the person was kind of like, what gives? Like, why didn't you tell me about this? And I'm just like, because you weren't there yet. Like, and that's, I mean, it's true. I have every intention on telling, and stuff falls through the cracks sometimes, but but for the most part, I wasn't there yet. Like, and they weren't there yet. They weren't ready to hear it. And when you're working with people, excuse me, when you're working with people, you can see their blinders start to kind of, like, in the beginning, they're like, I need day parties, I need to do this. And then you can slowly kind of start to see them, excuse me. You can slowly start to see them kind of come back a little bit. And I see it as working with people through the upper levels. I find that when people get to that organizational level and they have another large leader underneath them, I see the blinders really come back. It's very interesting to see. And I can't even words. Lori's kind of looking at me like, what do you mean? Like, words can't really describe it. It's just in conversation, you can tell that they're thinking about things from a different perspective now, and it's hard to think about it from that perspective until you're doing it, and so, but it's just interesting. But you also see it as managers. If you're really working hand in hand with your managers, sometimes you can actually spot it in the managers as they're coming up through manager, store manager, executive manager, because at first they're just kind of like, oh my God, I have these 3 people and we're going to do everything. And these 3, but they're not working. Only one is not working. Oh my God, right. And then they get some more and they start to kind of relax about the 1 or 2 that aren't working. Right. Then they get some more and then they start to kind of be like, okay, I get it. Like, sometimes, but sometimes they don't. They're still like, well, I still have 5 people that aren't working. It's like, go recruit more. You're okay. So it is. It's one of those things. So yeah, it's interesting just to kind of see where that all goes. And Jenny, I think you hit the nail on the head that sometimes we do put it on them. So we have to be careful in our delivery of the things that they need to do so that we don't do that. Who's actually really good at that? Nikki Micah is phenomenal at baby stepping her people through things. She's very, very good at that. She's done that for years, and it comes from her background in coaching ice skaters. And so it just kind of clearly you can't give an ice skater that's brand new, like, we're going to do this, and they're just like, I can't stay vertical. Like, You know what I mean?
Tomorrow we're doing a triple axle. It'll be
Right.
great.
So she
Yeah.
has to break it way down. And so it truly comes from her background that she breaks things way down for her people. Like it's kind of interesting to watch. So, but yeah, so think about that the next time you're working with a new consultant, a new manager, whatever. And just think about like, am I overwhelming them? Or should I just say, hey, let's get started. Let's get you logged in and let's date a party, and just stop there. And then just let them do those things. And then you can say, okay, now let's talk about who you want to invite to that party, and so it's not always going to be that way. Sometimes you're going to have somebody that's just like, date a party. I don't have anybody to invite to parties. So then you're okay. So let's talk about who you're going to, like, so there's always going to be sort of this flow. But if like 1, 2, 3, if you have your steps mapped out, right, then it's easier for you to kind of slowly flow through them, and sometimes you're going to go to 5 and then actually have to step back to 3, right? Because maybe it was too much for them. And then, just to kind of go through. And that's something that you can do in your productive procrastination time, is you can figure out what you want to tell a new consultant. Lori's like, we need to get rid of that. No such thing. You know what actually I call it? I didn't even know it had a word either. I call it white space in my calendar. I call it white space in my calendar, and I'll even mark in my calendar white space. And what that means to me is that I need to sit down and think. Like I just had to do it like in the last couple of weeks because I needed to think through what my monthly flow was, because for whatever reason, the whole new Gen Con system kind of, I feel like somebody shook my snow globe. Like I'm like, I don't know what reports to run. I don't know who to call. And so I've been working on that in my white space. And so if you don't want to call it productive procrastination because you feel like it's giving yourself permission to procrastinate, just call it white space.
I kind of like somebody shook my snow globe. That's like really funny.
It's true though. That I totally, you know what I mean? Like everything's right where you want it. You're like, okay, I've got this routine down. We're good to go. And somebody comes along and you're like, no.
Look at the glitter. Look at the snow.
It's so pretty. Isn't our website so pretty? Ah! But we'll get it, right? And we'll have everything right where we want it. It's all good.
I just keep finding new things to click. It's like,
I know.
oh,
Yeah,
I didn't see that
absolutely.
Bolero before. Let's see what's under there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And one of the things okay, this is just a sidebar. So one of the things that I found in this business that was really helpful for me was when I do figure out a routine or something like that, is to not be rigid in that routine. Because just like Facebook does weird updates and they move stuff around, Tupperware does that too. And life does that too, right? And so, but in the beginning, I was so rigid with it. Like, I was like, no, this week I have to do this. This week I have to do that. And I felt like if that wasn't happening, I was completely out of control. And now I just kind of, I realized that it just kind of, this is my ideal. Let's see what we can work to get close to that. And some weeks we hit it right on the head. And other weeks we don't. We like don't even show up to the party, And so it just kind of depends. Hi, Melissa. We see your face.
She got her flowers watered, I bet.
So that's something like, as you're kind of like figuring out your business, you're figuring out your own personal rhythms in the business, your baby steps for your people, whatever it is that you're figuring out, just know that like things are going to come along and you're going to be like, oh, I want to add that, or, oh, this isn't working, I want to take this out. So just be flexible in it, and it'll save you a lot of frustration. Because for me, that was like super frustrating, because I'd be like, no, I don't want to do it that way. I already set it out this way, and it's just like, just kind of, just take it all into consideration and just figure out what's best for you, your schedule, and your people. So, all right. Anything else?
Should we continue?
We should continue.
All right. Procrastination and the connection to stress. A professor at Carleton University has been studying procrastination for more than 19 years. We're going to go with Cycle, has found that the main thing driving procrastination is not avoiding work, it's avoiding stress. Procrastination is a subconscious desire to feel good right now, so you can feel a little stress relief. A common mistake we all make is thinking that people make a deliberate choice to procrastinate. In fact, most people who struggle with procrastination tell researchers that they feel like they have no control over it, and they're right, because they don't understand the real reason that we procrastinate. We procrastinate because we feel stressed out. Here's the catch. You aren't stressed about the work. You're stressed about the bigger stuff, money, relationship problems, or life in general. When you blow off work or studying for 15 minutes of online shopping or watching the highlights of last night's game, you're taking a mini stress break from the bigger stress you feel overall. It's like emotional eating for the mind. When you avoid something that feels hard, you get a sense of relief. Plus, when you do something you enjoy, like surfing Facebook or laughing at viral videos, you get a short-term boost of dopamine. The more often that you procrastinate, the more likely you'll repeat the behavior. Here's the problem. While you get a small boost of relief when you watch cat videos, over time, the work that you're avoiding builds, and that creates more stress in your life. Scott is an excellent example of this. He wrote to me because he wanted help getting out of his own head. He shared that everyone close to him had always said, "I'm the only thing that is holding me back," and they're right. Scott is a PhD student performing research in a physiology lab. He is married. He and his wife just had their first child, who is the most beautiful baby boy. He described his life like this. Everything at home is incredible, despite lots of financial stress, which would be expected considering that I'm in school. My issue is that in my daily life and branching into school lab work, I have trouble fulfilling obligations, which is starting to become a problem. Basically, I put things off continuously until it reaches the point where I've either missed a deadline or it upsets someone. I have very high expectations for myself, and I literally go to sleep every night telling myself that tomorrow is going to be a fresh start that I need, and I'm going to be able to tackle everything with tons of energy. But then I fail day after day, and that confidence in overcoming this by myself is starting to fade. Basically, I don't feel like I'm living anywhere near my full potential, and it's frustrating. Reading Scott's note, you can see that he's trapped in a vicious cycle of feeling disappointed in himself. I can totally relate because that's how I felt as I was struggling to get out of bed on time. Scott knows what he needs to do, attack the work and get it done, but he can't seem to make himself do it. Scott's note gives me a chance to explain what's actually going on when you procrastinate. He told us that he and his wife are under a lot of financial stress. That financial stress doesn't feel good. It also explains the reason why he procrastinates to get temporary relief from the money stress. Remember that when we replace difficult tasks with doing something easier, we get a temporary mood boost and a feeling of control. It seems counterintuitive, but the reason why Scott keeps blowing off the stuff he needs to do at the lab is because he wants relief from the financial stress he feels in his life. So how on earth does he stop this? Luckily, there's 3 simple and research-backed steps, and the 5-second rule will help you 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 do them. Whether you're avoiding work like Scott, cleaning like Evelyn, or exercising like Jay Lusso once was, you can use the rule to beat procrastination every time. Forgive yourself. The first thing research tells us, you need to forgive yourself for procrastinating. Seriously, this isn't kumbaya, this is science. Remember our expert from Carleton University? Dr. Seiko also co-authored a paper about how students who forgave themselves for procrastinating were less likely to procrastinate on their next test. Sounds silly, but part of the problem that psychologists have uncovered is that procrastinators are really hard on themselves to begin with. Trish found this that she was able to forgive herself when she changed her life. It says you'll change your life. You won't feel sorry for yourself anymore, like I used to. Reach your goals, live your dreams. Instead of beating herself up, she's no longer procrastinating. Amazing. You may also relate to Ryan, who wrote to me about being in the beginning stages of starting a new business. He said that as much as he wants this venture to work, it amazes me how hard it is to force myself to spend time on it and actually do it due to the fear of failure. Ryan, I just watched your TED Talk. My impulse was to look you up and make a connection with you, so I done it. I'm in the beginning stages of starting a new product related business and was just searching the internet for validation that I'm doing the right thing by just going for it. I'm not a wealthy person, so as much as I want it to work, it amazes me how hard it is to force myself to spend and actually do it due to the fear of failure. You talk definitely motivated me, and win or lose, at least I'm doing something. Thanks for doing what you do. We are grateful. I love what he said at the end. Win or lose, at least I'm doing something. It takes a lot of bravery to be able to get honest with yourself and admit how hard it is to focus on what you need to do. Another perfect example is our PhD student in the lab, Scott. Remember what he wrote? He said he has very high expectations for myself. Every time he procrastinates, he feels shame and guilt. Those negative feelings then create even more stress for Scott as his confidence in overcoming this by myself is starting to fade, which causes him to feel even more stress and procrastinate even more. So let's apply this advice to Scott. Step number 1, stop the cycle by forgiving yourself. Scott, you've got to take 5 seconds, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Forgive yourself for upsetting people, falling behind, and not working to your full potential. If you can recognize that your stress about finances are driving the procrastination at the lab, now you've got a chance to assert yourself and take control. By the way, you want to take control so you can achieve your goals. And that person you hope to become can help you right now. That leads us to step 2. What would the future you do? What? Allow me to explain. Oh, good. Dr. Seigel's team has been doing a lot of research on our present self versus our future self. Our future self is the person we want to become. Interestingly, research proves that when you can picture the future you, it gives you the objectivity to push yourself in the present moment. It experiments when researchers show people in their own pictures digitally aged, they're more likely to save for retirement. I guess that's an explanation for why vision boards work. They help you envision the future you, and that is a great coping mechanism for the stress you experience today as the present you. So Scott, create a vision board or a mental image of what your life looks like when all this grad school stress is behind you and you are Professor Scott. The moment you feel yourself procrastinating, just ask yourself, what would Professor Scott do? This leads us to step 3. Get started with the 5-second rule. Finally, once you understand the source of procrastination, Dr. Seigel's favorite advice is just get started. He's not the only one talking about the importance of starting. One of the most powerful ways to create new habits, according to researchers, is to create a starting ritual. There's no better starting ritual than the 5-second rule. Now that I understand the science of all this, I can explain why just get started works. If procrastinating is a habit, you have to replace the bad behavior pattern, avoidance, with a new positive one, getting started. The moment you feel yourself hesitate, doing easier tasks, or avoiding hard work, use the rule 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Push yourself to start the important thing you need to do. Getting started takes us back to our engineer at Cisco and the concept of a locus of control. Procrastination makes you feel like you have no control over yourself. When you assert yourself and just get started, you're taking control of the moment and your life. Daniela feels empowered and capable when she puts the rule into practice, showing us that the benefits of beating procrastination expand beyond work and into the more important areas of improving my relationship with myself. As I explained throughout the book, exerting effort with 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 switches the gears in your mind and allows the prefrontal cortex to help you get started. Each time you use the rule, it'll get easier and easier to stop procrastinating and just start. Just as Cy found out, telling yourself to just make the call, reply to the email, finish the stupid job, and start is the secret to completing anything. Even though she doesn't like doing it, she's formed the habit of taking action anyway, and has completed a huge project with this mindset and get what I want. In Scott's case, back in the lab, he can use the rules to count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and push himself to work for a short interval of time. Now that he realizes the source of his procrastination, financial stress, he has forgiven himself, extremely important step. And once again, he is picturing the future Dr. Scott. He can start counting to assert control, physically move to his desk and begin working. When he finds himself getting off track, he can count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 again. The rule makes it easier to just get going, something that will help Scott gain control of his work and feel better equipped to deal with his other financial stresses head on. Andre also used the rule to push past procrastination and act on his goals. Andre is 16 years old, but he's already learning how to beat procrastination and is starting to write a book. He said that he always had excuses, that he wasn't ready, too busy, not smart enough. The rule helped him to get past those excuses, and now he's taking action on his book. Andre says, I began to rely on an urge to act on my ideas, which led to my involvement in BZ Change, a club with a focus in community service, which I am now president of. I also took action in reaching out to colleges and acting on my immediate academic goals. Many of my recent achievements were possible because I chose to engage in the idea that within the 5 seconds I had the impulse. My objective now is to write a book, an impulse I had never taken the time to act on because I always had an excuse. I wasn't ready, I was too busy, I'm not smart enough. This rule helped me get past those excuses by taking the initiative to simply write down my goal and build on it. Every time I saw that sticky note about focusing my creativity on writing a book, I took the step. I tried something, it changed my life. Andre shows us that at any age and with any goal, we have the power to own ourselves, look inside, take a step, try something, and change my life. The reason why just starting is so important is because you'll also be tapping into what researchers call the progress principle, which describes the phenomenon that forward progress of any kind, including small wins, boosts our mood and increases our happiness and productivity levels. On top of that, once you start a project, you'll have triggered a mechanism in your brain to cue you to keep at it. As I mentioned earlier, researchers have found out that the brain remembers unfinished tasks better than finished ones. Once you start, your mind will keep nudging you to finish. I also told you that my snooze button habit was a form of procrastination. Now I understand why. It gave me momentary relief from the larger stresses in my life. That's why I hit it. When I reflect back, I see now I broke the habit by creating a starting ritual, the 5-second rule. My snooze button habit got replaced with a positive new one, counting 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then standing up and starting the day. 7 years later, I still count backwards to launch myself out of bed every single morning. So in sum, here's how you can most effectively use the 5-second rule to beat procrastination. Use it to make yourself start. Start small. Attack what you're avoiding for just 15 minutes at a time. Then take a break and watch a few cat videos. And for crying out loud, give yourself a break for blowing things off until now. You're only human. All of this stuff is common sense. You eat the elephant in the room, one bite at a time. What we are learning over and over in this book is that unless you beat the feelings that trigger your bad habits and you push yourself to just get started, you'll never change.
I love that. I love that. And this next page where it says you'll either find a way or you'll find an excuse. I remember there was a summit and there was a business leader and she stood up there and because like their business had kind of diminished, like just things happen, like a director quit, another director like had a big life change, another one moved. I mean, it was just like some random things that kind of happened that kind of led to just a decline in their business. And then they promoted all these directors like in 1 year. And she was up there talking and she said, when I'm working with them, she said, I do work with my directors one-on-one. And she said, when I work with them, I end each session when I'm working with them one-on-one. And it was just like, okay, next week, you're either going to come to me with an excuse or results. It's your choice. And she was just very cut and dry. And I always remembered that. I was like, whoa, like, but I just kind of was like, wow, that because it was just so blunt. I'm not quite that blunt unless I have to be. Jenny's smiling. She's like, I don't know. Lori's gotten the blunt end of my sword from time to time, but but it's true. I mean, it's very true. And I love these steps, forgiving yourself. That's what we talked about right before they started talking about that, was giving yourself some grace around some of this stuff and to help kind of relieve some of that stress and some of that pressure. Right. And then what would your future self do? I love that too. Right. And the thought of like having pictures kind of like age slightly so that you can think of yourself in retirement to help you think about like financial decisions that you're making between now and then. Wow, that would be really powerful, because a lot of times I don't know about all of you. I can't see past the here and now a lot of times, and sometimes I don't want to see past the here and now, and so I'm not going to go into that because I'll just get upset. But so, and sometimes you just, but I just thought that was really interesting thinking about what would your future self do, and then getting started, just simply putting one foot in front of the other. And I completely agree about, what did she call it? The success principle, the progress principle. I completely agree with that because you get on a roll and you're just kind of like, okay, what can I do next? Okay, what can I do next? You know, and you're just knocking stuff off your list, or just you can visibly see, maybe you're doing tasks around the house and you're trying to declutter a space, right? And just even taking 2 boxes a day and doing something with them, or 1 box a day. And then when you walk past that area, you're just like, look at that. What can I do next? You know, what can I just kind of tackle next? You just get really excited about it. And so I'm a firm believer in that progress principle, that you just kind of got to get that ball rolling. Lori, did you have something to share?
Oh yeah. I
You
was
just kinda
thinking
looked-
about what
you had
you
that look.
said.
She was
I know.
procrastinating on talking. Yes. Go.
I was processing what you were saying. No, when you think and you talk about what your future self would say, that's kind of like how we always say when you're like at a crossroads or you're something, you know, thinking what you should do. You know, we've said it ourselves. You know, what would Pam do? What would Pam say? Right? If you're sitting like, oh, should I say something? Should I talk to that person? You know, that's crossed my mind too. Like, what would Pam do?
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah. Or
'cause
like
sometimes I
whoever.
can't.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I can't see my future self, like you said. Like I can
Right.
think about it, but I can't picture my future self in my head vividly, like I can Pam. You
Right.
know.
Right. Or your
Mhm.
competition. I think that, like, somebody that I like,
Um,
whoever's like one above, and I'm like I'm like, what would she do? What would she be doing right now? What's she doing right now? Is she working her business, or is she sitting on the couch? You know, what's she doing? She's
Watching cat
Netflix.
videos.
Yeah, watching cat videos. Is she binge watching Netflix? Probably not, you know. And so I sometimes have thought that in the past when I've been like striving for a specific goal. Because for me, it's not necessarily about that person. It's about just like trying to get to the next, and then trying to get to the next, and then trying to get to the next. Because being number one, things like that doesn't drive me at all. What it drives me is just like the little, like trying to better my best. That's what drives me all day long, trying to better my best. It's not about a competition against somebody else. It's me just trying to better my best. But I use whoever is right above as just kind of a stepping, you know, like just it's just a measuring stick for me in my head. But yeah, being number one, being whatever, that stuff has never ever driven me. There's some people that drives them tremendously, tremendously, and that's great. You just got to know yourself and know what drives you. That doesn't drive me. What drives me is like bettering my best, trying to do something I've never done before, accomplish something I've never accomplished before, whether it's numbers or leaders or recruiting, like whatever it is, or maybe it's just myself having balance, peace, whatever. So yeah, good stuff. This chapter was chock full of good stuff. Oh, hey, the next chapter is how to become the happiest person you know.
Maybe we
Because
should
that
keep
won't be
going.
obnoxious.
it's actually only like 2 pages. Maybe we should.
No, I gotta keep on track. Got things to do.
Oh.
This one.
So, but yeah. Well, awesome. Did anybody else have anything that they wanted to share? No. All right.
Okay.
Well, thanks everybody. It's a good call. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. Happy Monday.